Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back for round 12. Of the Invictus Racing League. We are going to the lovely streets and to the lovely circuit that is Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix today. Now, what we need to discuss though is I'm going to waste zero time. Fortunately, there were some mild delays, but that hopefully is remedied as we are now forming up the lobby. But let's talk about the championship, and let's specifically talk about the Drivers' Championship. If we have done some numbers internally in the paddock, and we have calculated that Emir only needs 2 points. We have seen consistent P1s, P2s, bar one race. They've been on the podium, either P1 or P2, every single race. To the point where Emir only needs to outscore Lenny by 2 points in order to win the championship. So if Emir gets a P1 in this race, they may have sealed the driver's title. So that definitely is one that we will need to watch, and one that we will definitely be keeping an eye on. That is for sure, because they have been in a ruthlessly consistent position throughout this entire series, throughout this entire season. They have been ruthlessly consistent, refusing to yield for even the highest of challenges, really just putting a really good demonstration of skill, a demonstration of prowess, and they are within touching point. With 4 races to go, they are extremely close to sealing out the championship to the point with 0 recovery. But the McLaren suit are still performing very well. So in a wider scope of things, their 2 drivers are 2nd and 4th in the drivers. So by no means is it going to be a boring one. They still have a very strong roster, and we could see some shakeups. We could see, God forbid, Emir. If Emir makes a mistake and they do not score points this race, things could be drastically different. And things will potentially be a lot more chaotic, because we are also, as we did last week over in Imola, we are combining with the F2 League once again. And we had the numbers in place to where we had some combinations for the F1 and F2 League. Now, there were some driver shuffle arounds. There were some mild driver shufflings. So, unfortunately, Yeslad is not going to be racing with us. Their wheel is currently broken. Cass will be racing, but they will be racing for the Williams suit. But apart from that, it is primarily business as usual. So, in the similar standings that we saw previously. So, Emir and Frederick will be taking the Mercedes suit. Gaudio and Byrus from F2 will be taking the 2 Ferrari spots. Jasper will be taking 1 Red Bull with Alessio. And in fact, if we hop over to the F2 standings, we have Alessio, who has officially, and this really deserves some recognition, so share them love in the chat, because they have officially sealed out the F2 driver's title. Fortunately, this was not information I was privy to at the time, but insanity, because in all of that chaos, and what a round to end it on, a combo round to end it on for their F2 driver's title drive, they have officially sealed out the F2 drivers championship title. So be sure to give them some love in the chat if you have not done so already, or if you are in the Discord, be sure to give them some praise and some recognition. They deserve it. They've driven hard and they've driven well throughout this entire season. Say almost like Bar one race, I'm seeing some similarities here, because bar one race, Alessio has got a podium every single time. So I'm seeing a little bit of a parallel here. Forgive me for drawing comparisons between F2 and F1, but I'm starting to see some characteristics lining up with each other. So we might see potentially some league change arounds. One can only wait and see. But in terms of ones to watch tonight, starting off with the F1 roster, one to watch will definitely be, of course, Emir. This is their potential championship winning race. Lenny will also be one to watch, because as their second, their next closest driver's title competitor, they will have a real job on their hands, because from Lenny's perspective, they have to make sure that they outpace or otherwise make sure that they outscore Emir to still give them a fighting chance for the driver's title. They may well still be in it for the constructors, because McLaren has been doing extremely well in constructors fight. And if we take a quick look over there now, you can see they are only 15 points away. Both drivers getting consistent points, getting consistent finishes, and really chipping away at that lead that Mercedes managed to get very early on in the season. Both of their drivers consistently in high point standings. Going back to the driver standings, you can see, especially after the Monaco break, short of Cameron unfortunately making a mistake at Imola and crashing out of the race, you could see that the McLaren drivers, both the McLaren drivers, are consistent high points finishers, and that's certainly paying them dividends with the constructors fight. So the McLarens, Mercedes will be drivers to watch. Cass in the Aston Martin, of course, also being another one. And as well as that, Flyboy getting a surprise P3 from the Williams team. Unfortunately, Rin once again did not finish. And hopefully we finally start to see that turnaround. To say they've had a bad stroke of luck joining after the Monaco break. They did score points, of course, in Saudi, but they did not manage to carry that momentum through to Mexico, by extension Imola. They did not manage to carry that through. So hopefully we start to see the Williams really getting some points on the table, because as we saw both in qualifying and for the majority of the race distance, their drivers have pace, and we have been saying this time and time again. Their drivers have really strong pace, but they just need to materialize that and really up their consistency to turn that pace into results. Because you can be the fastest driver on track, you can get fastest lap, you can really challenge the leaders, but if you don't make it to the end, you don't score points. And that's the harsh reality. And that's one that Williams is having to grapple with, at least right now. So we'll definitely see, because Flyboy is not going to be racing today. Instead, Cass is going to be taking their place in the Williams suit. So it may be a case of different teammate dynamics. We might see a little bit of a different story play out, considering that the higher scorer of the Williams team is currently out of the running. But beyond that, before we move on to the F2 League, another one to watch, I would say, would be Liam. That being said, to say we have not heard from them, so it's a mystery as if they are going to be present for this race. But certainly the AlphaTauris have been putting in a good showing as of late, as especially Liam coming back from the Monaco break. We had consistent high finishes, touching podiums even throughout. So a few drivers to watch, a few stories to tell. Moving on to the F2 League, however, so updated points layout, updated scoring graphics, so everyone can read it this time. Ones to watch, definitely I would say Owen and Kent. Of course, the driver's title is sealed out by Alessio, and brilliant driving from them, but there are still second and third places to be had, to be fought for. And while it is a battle of pride in the end, it is still a battle they don't want to pass up on. Both Owen and Kent, both British drivers for Mercedes and McLaren respectively, are equal. They are equal on points. And as well as that, Nikolaites in the Alpine is only 3 points behind. So this is by no means a done and dusted chapter. Alessio may have sealed out the title, but there are still plenty of fights going around for both the drivers' titles and the constructors' titles further down. There's going to be a lot of fights for potential podium spots, for lower spots, and looking at the constructors as well, Red Bull have been doing exceptionally well in constructors for F2, and they definitely aren't out of the woods yet, I would say. So McLaren have been doing well in terms of point scoring, but of course they have our drivers title champion of Alessio on the Red Bull team, and Laurent has also been a good driver throughout also. They have been getting challenges from drivers like Kent and Owen, and as such, the spread between first, second, and third place is closer than one would be comfortable with. So any big mistake from any of the three teams could cost them the constructors potentially, depending on how you approach it, depending on who you ask. But we need to, we're going to see some action tonight. So certainly, if you are in the chat right now, do make your voices known. Who you pegging to win for the F1 League? Who you're pinning to win the F2 League? The races today, and as well as your predictions for who you think is going to be taking drivers and constructors for this season. Myself personally, I am on the fence. I do believe Red Bull in the F2 League and Mercedes in the F1 League have a strong shot. I have more confidence in Red Bull taking the F2 constructors than Mercedes taking the F1, and let me explain why. You have to understand that Emir has been carrying the majority of these points. If we look, 156 points, 136 of those are Emir alone. And they need to essentially pick up the socks. If it's a team effort, Emir cannot carry the constructors title on their own. And Frederick, I'm not discounting Frederick. Frederick has been putting on some great performances. But in the same breath, it's the consistency of said performances, because Frederick has been DNFing or not been present for quite a few races, and that has definitely harmed the constructors' drive. Compared to McLaren, who, yes, 15 points behind, and given the performances from drivers like Emir, it's a difficult fight. But in the same breath, McLaren have been consistently getting high positions and racking up those points in comparison to the Mercedes suit, to the point where they are well in contention still. Now, it does have to be said that these are... unfortunately, we did not have a graphic prepared in time, but these are the pre-Imola constructor standings. I did have as much of a look around as I can and did try to attempt to seek out the graphics for the 11th race, but say they were not to be found. Oh, here we are, in fact. Let's quickly hop to that now. So I've just been made aware of it, thankfully. Let's quickly pop those in there. Okay, there we are. So as we get ready up and we get into qualifying, we do have the updated standings. So there have been a couple issues internally with graphics. Hopefully they are all ironed out and resolved later. But here we are. See the updated constructors standings. So the gap has grown. Unfortunately, Cameron's off did offset the championship a fair bit, and now they are 19 points behind, as opposed to 15 where they were before. But if they can pull their socks off, if McLaren can keep their own and hold things together, then they definitely are well within a shot of taking this constructors title. While I still think Emir is going to take the driver's title relatively comfortably, I have a good level of confidence that McLaren will certainly stick a challenge with their two very consistent drivers to the constructors. But here we are. We are just checking in now. We are just checking that the drivers are all ready to go. Just final preparations before we head into qualifying. We are just having a quick audit, quick check that everyone that is expected is in the lobby. So F1 are ready to go. We are just quickly checking that F2 is all ship shape and that they are all ready for running. Now, in while we have a little bit of time, I need to discuss the last few races. So, of course, we are on round 12 here. We are at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and it is going to be a bit of a dicey race. We might see definitely some drivers settling into positions, but once DRS is in effect, and not to mention weather, it can still spice up what other people may consider to be a very boring race. Not very much elevation change, but in the same breath, there is DRS zones to consider. There is, of course, to say the very quick run through the first sector up to the first sort of hairpin before the DRS straight. And those will be prime fighting spots for drivers to try and secure positions and really push the limits. I do think we will see a couple infractions and a couple of flashpoints that the stewards may have to look at, but this is certainly a lot safer of a track. I don't think that we're going to have many offs and many DNFs, if at all, short of any extraneous issues. But we are coming up to the last few rounds of the season here. So we've already closed out the driver's title for F2. So we have already closed out the driver's title for F2, and we are very close to closing out the driver's title for F1. However, the constructors' titles are still definitely up for the fight. And with 3 rounds to go, namely China, the Shanghai circuit, the Hungaroring, and finishing it off in Silverstone here on the 8th of June for our leagues. This is certainly going to go down to the wire in terms of the Constructors' Championship. And here we are just checking in. Last minute driver position swaps. So reportedly players are swapping the driver seats they're there for. So the F1 League is maintaining the consistency for the majority of their roster. So for the most part, they will be retaining their roster, with the exception of, I believe, Cass, who's taken the Williams, as was previously discussed. But we are just readying up now and ready to head into qualifying. And then the F2 drivers have taken up the majority of the free spaces. But it was on a first come, first serve basis. So if anyone is unaware of how these merger races essentially work, think of it like a Le Mans race. Think of it like a Le Mans race where you have multiple classes running on track at the same time. You'll have your F1 class in this case, and then you will also have your F2 class running simultaneously on track, sharing the same track space, and that gives the F2 drivers an opportunity to be shoutcasted. I would say it's a good opportunity for them because they were previously not shoutcasted up until this point, apart from the first couple races, which was actually me. But they finally have a chance to get some well-deserved publicity. They've definitely had some exciting races from what I've heard, and they deserve recognition. But yeah, the F2 drivers definitely deserve a little bit of recognition, as well as having the numbers and having the space to combine the lobbies and just in general make the racing a little bit more interesting. It does not disproportionately affect the results as far as we have assessed, so any worries about race neutrality or impacting the others' races should be dispelled. Drivers are still expected to uphold the same level of conduct in terms of on-race etiquette. Blue flag rules do apply, etc, etc. But here we go. We are now heading into the session itself. We're just getting ourselves prepared here. So setting ourselves up while drivers are getting ready to head out of the pits. Lap data, zero telemetry for now. We want to keep that off. Right, our UA, and there we go. We are now officially ready. So, now officially ready. It's a Red Bull first to head out of the pits, the McLaren following close behind. My name is Sappytron. I will be your commentator for today. If you do enjoy the league at this point, it will be a great time to like the stream, show that you enjoy it. Let us know in the chat what you think. So if you don't like it, dislike it, tell us why. And just in general, be sure to stay subscribed if you are enjoying and want to see more, want to see how this very exciting season comes to a close. Here we go. Drivers on their outlap. Emir, interestingly, opting to start on a medium, set their banker on the mediums here. Now, there has been a, and this is sort of inside talk from the paddock, there has been reports of a gentleman's agreement to start on the same tire that they have qualied with, regardless of grid position, because, of course, grid positions are slightly changed owing to the merger of the two classes. And there we go. As previously discussed, there has been a gentleman's agreement put in place so that everyone starts on their quali tyre, or their fastest quali tyre anyway, to establish a little bit of fairness where people didn't always have their grid position intact. But here we go. We're going to stick it here with our Drivers' Championship leader for F1 as they're going to set a banker lap on the mediums. Maybe assess some of the lines, some of the approaches that they're taking. Owen from the F2 League is going to be the first to go out and start setting an actual flyer. One of the first to go out on track. But here we go. So we're going to hop on the board now and see how our Drivers' Championship leader does it. Here we go. You can see, though, and I think the difference between some of our top drivers and those who may potentially be a bit slower is just how much of the track Emir is actually using here. You can see they are frequently using absolutely everything of the track, maximizing those track limits in order to get the best possible runs through all of the turns, carry as much speed as possible where grip may be limiting. So here we go. So it's looking quick from Emir so far. Definitely a solid run. Say Owen coming through, say setting good speed. Say a lot of drivers are running on their medium tire to set their bankers, maybe burn their sets, get them out of the way, get a baseline before starting to push for higher speeds. Certainly is an interesting approach, but a reasonable one in the grand scheme of things. So you've got Scotty coming through here, say just starting out on their lap. Interestingly, going for the soft tire to start off with. Definitely this is going for the fast banker, maybe trying to get ahead out of the traffic. Is going to be Owen with a 131.673, a very good start and a good baseline to set for the Alfa Romeo driver in the F2 League. Here we go. Alessio is going to come in and quickly sweep that through, though. They are on a softer compound, but it's a 130.927. And there we go. So Emir in the F1 League with a 130 flat on the medium compound. So a very good level of pace. A good spread of pace too. Not to mention, for both F2 and F1, I say a little bit of the discrepancy between F2 and F1 starting to show here. Frederick sitting at 135.6. Not the greatest run. Not really the greatest run. Callum with a 131.992. Looking good for the Aston Martin there. So, of course, we have Jasper with a 130.424. Looking good for the Red Bull. And, of course, they are also on the medium tyre. So they know that there is more pace to be unlocked yet. Here we go. So heading on with Scotty, though, it's going to be a 130.2. So they are in a softer compound. But that is a very good showing for the F2 driver. Getting the fastest Sector 3 of anyone in this race so far. It's looking good for them. Hopping on quickly with one of the McLarens here. So you've got Cameron taking a very good speed. So you see Red Bull on track. It's going to have to take evasive action. There you go, staying out of the way of the McLaren there. Going to be looking good. So they're taking a good amount of speed. Really trying to nail the braking points. So it gets the turn in just right. Going a little bit wide on the final corner. Not quite getting it, but that is not going to be too much of a concern because it's looking very fast from that McLaren, and it's going to be a 129.6. That is going to be the fastest lap of the session so far. Popping in there quickly with Jorel here, so we have a 131 flat, so another good lap. So the two Alfa Romeos doing very well, keeping it very tight and very close with each other. Those are some good banker laps thus far. Because we have what looks like Frederick coming through for another bank here. Looks like they got an invalidation, but is really going to be pushing on this lap now. So they've got 2 laps of heat and 2 laps of wear in those medium tyres. And while that may not be too much of a concern, they do still want to have the absolute maximum on these mediums to set as good of a banker as they can. So Gaudio doing very well, taking a good line to stay out of the way of the hot lapper. And as we head down the DRS straight, you're going to see the level of speed, the insane speeds that these cars can carry. And insane levels of braking as well. You can see, going to speeds of up to 190 miles an hour, almost touching the 200 mile an hour mark. It's going to be another invalidation for Eric. For Frederick, though, it's not looking great, unfortunately. Sam in the second Aston Martin with a 130.593. That was looking very good. They were on the soft compound for the Aston Martin here. Looking very good. So unfortunately, that second lap is going to be invalidated. But it's all looking very quick, very fast. And certainly a good mix throughout so far. I say Rin with a 129.863. Looking very good, very well done from the Williams over here. Of course, I say really, let's say at this point, I believe that they are prepping to head back into the pits. I say a lot of their drivers on track have just sort of gone for laps, gone for bankers, and are now heading back into the pits. They've got the laps that they want to start off with, and now they're waiting for a little bit of traffic to clear, I believe, before heading back out again. And as you see there, so Frederick just being pulled back into the pits. Looking over at Gaudio, though, Gaudio is one of the few drivers who has yet to set a time, potentially invalidated. You can see there, their lap is currently invalidated. I'm going to quickly check in on Lenny, however, who is on a flyer in the McLaren. It's going to go really wide. Is opting not to set a banker, though, and it's going to go straight into the pits. Interesting strategy. Of course, they need to set a banker lap. Otherwise, they do not have a good position at all in qualifying. They will be at the back of the grid if they are one of the only ones who has not set. There we go. So Alessio, our F2 driver's title champion, heading out. And so trying to get some heat and some soft tires. Going to go for a faster run potentially this time round. Really not sure what Nicholas is doing there. What should you say? They are one of the few drivers who have yet to start, who's yet to set a time. Potentially lost control a little bit coming out of the first sector. Hopefully we can see them pick that back up, as currently they do not have a lap and need to set one. We have crossed the halfway point of our qualifying session. It is a short qualifying session so far. McLaren is leading, Cameron with a 129.6. It's a very good level of pace. Looking at the tyre compound, however, some of the drivers here are on the old tyres or on medium tyres. And we have yet to see everyone at peak pace on full softs with full push. So some of these drivers are getting acclimatized to the track still, and may not have had necessarily all the amount of practice that some of the others may have had. You can see, here we go. Having a look through the grid here, say Amir is going to be setting up to go for a flyer now. Had an invalidation last lap. But looking very strong on pace. Say if that was not an invalidation, that would have been a new record, because that was a 128.7. All they need to do now is get that lap clean, and they are in very good stead. Although that looked to be an extension, it's not been flagged. Luckily, that has not been flagged for the Drivers' Championship leader. So looking at Virus, coming down to the third sector here, so carrying a good level of speed. It's going to be the fastest second sector for them here as they head through, although the graphics are a little bit confusing. Going to be the second fastest. Heading through the final sector, it's looking good, it's looking strong. Not taking the optimal lines here. And as you can see, getting a little bit squirrely coming out of that tight left-hander. Really, I think if Virus wants to increase their time saved and sort of shave down those tenths, they need to work on their lines and optimizing the lines through the corners. But it's not going to matter because it is a 130.616. That's locking them in at 8th place on the leaderboard thus far. Is a good showing from the Alpha Tower here. They're hopping on with Lenny, however, so they have still yet to set a banker. They can see trying to really maximize the level of speed that they can carry through into that next lap. Oh my god, there's a spin! No! Wait, they managed to keep it on track. Lenny managed to... Hang on a second. It's a shame we can't get a replay on that because Lenny, yes, they spanned, but they managed to keep it on track. That was excellent level of driving skill there. Really good catch. So, yeah, he may have not been able to set an outlap as of yet, but that was some brilliant save there. They've still got a valid lap on their hands. Not the fastest, but it's an outlap nonetheless. So here we go, say Amir in the pits currently, which leaves Frederick about to set a 129.2. So we're going to set a POV on them, but the game had a bit of a moment. But 129.2, I thought there was a mirror on track. But a 129.2, a brilliant level of pace from the second Mercedes driver. Looks like the Mercedes Dream Team is back right when they need it at the end of the season. The Mercedes Dream Team is thoroughly back, or at least so it seems thus far. So here we go. We did see Amir with a pace in the 128s. The only problem is their lap was not clean. So they will need to address that. So Jorel stuck on the side of the track. They have retired from the session, so they will not be getting any improvements on their times. Gaudio has also apparently left the session, meaning that they will potentially be starting from the back of the grid unless they can rejoin. You can see hopping into the pits there. A lot of the drivers have sort of had their runs and are now heading back into the pits. Coop is coming through for a run now. Definitely one of our drivers who hasn't been the most consistent, who has been a bit prone to spinning, losing control of their car. Hopefully they've managed to dial things in a bit because they have not been so hot as of late. Unfortunately, that was an invalidated lap, but it was a much better showing of pace as they're 138 compared to the 144 they currently hold. Although it won't gain them any places, that will certainly show a marked improvement in pace. So here we go, majority of drivers currently in the pits. The last few minutes of qualifying, they're waiting for that timer to run down. As you see Coop there getting a little bit shaky, getting a little bit bent out of shape, coming out of the second sector and through to the DRS straight. They need to focus on reining the car in, even if that means being slightly slower than the rest of the competition. They were losing a lot more time owing to being off track, and unfortunately that's an invalidation there. But they are losing a lot more time being off the track and spinning than they are if they were to be slow. So that is probably my key point that I would pass on there to Coop here. But to say, Amir 128.7 again on their outlap. They need to convert that into a flyer, and looks so far the very good pace so far through the first sector, carrying a really good amount of speed and really just nailing the lines. You can see how they're taking as much of the curbs as possible while keeping the car stable, as much of the apex, really maximizing those track limits. That's going to be a sector 1 best so far, taking some really clean lines through there. So heading onto the DRS straight, getting a lot of speed, touching almost 200 miles an hour. Say 119, yeah, 200 miles an hour. You can see the amount of speed that these F1 cars are taking. So there we go. It's looking very good. Can they convert this into pace? Can we see a Mercedes 1-2 on the grid for the first time in forever? Let's see, P2 best, a Sector 2, or Sector 1 and Sector 2 best coming through here. So can they convert that pace through to the final sector? It was a little bit wide coming through that corner there. a little bit wide. They're coming up to traffic, however. How is Emir going to negotiate the traffic? So they have got Dirty Air to contend with. Alessio up in front of them. Looks like Emir is unfazed. They are coming through to the start-finish straight. DRS fully open. Slipstream as well. It's a 128.823. That is the fastest lap. That is currently a Mercedes 1-2, and that is some brilliant pace from the Silver Arrows. Okay, but here we go. Not sure what's happening to Rin there. They seem to have really, like, they're slowing right down on track. Not sure what is happening with the Williams. But here we go. So Williams here. So Cass has been doing very well. It was very strange seeing them in a non-Aston Martin suit. But Cass has been doing extremely well. I say, in amid all of that commotion, Cass set a 128.9 just now and has partitioned the two Mercedes drivers. Of course, one that I am worried about is Lenny. Of course, P2 in the Drivers' Championship. They are the only driver currently that stands between Emir and the Drivers' title. So are they going to be on 110% today, or are we going to potentially see the Drivers' title finally be sealed? Yeah, Cass really slowing down on track. Not sure what's going on there. Slowing right down on track. Almost to a complete standstill. Now, this may be a strategic move, don't forget. We're seeing a lot of drivers slowing down now. So we have 20 seconds left to cross that qualifying window. So that may be a strategic move that some drivers are playing in order to get a quali lap in. But here we go. Say Lenny and Cameron are both coming up across the start-finish line. We have just about 10 seconds to go. And there you go. That is the marker. That is both McLarens across the line. You can see getting a little bit squirrely there, but both McLarens make it across the line just in time to set another lap here. And this is going to be the last chance for Lenny. Lenny needs to set a quali lap here, or they are in serious trouble. They will not be able to fight all the way back up to the top of the grid in the time that a race is taking place. Here we go, taking a look. So Frederick is down in the pit. Scotty back. We have two McLarens, Byrus, Jasper, say to the Red Bulls, Sam in the Aston Martin, and Joshua all out trying to set a last shot here in qualifying. But there we go. So 2 and 3 for the Williams suit. Looking very good so far for them. So 2-3 and Amir taking P1, at least so far. It's looking very good. But there we go. Byrus has completely stopped on track. Not ideal, but is out of the way of surrounding traffic, which is at least good. There we go. Cameron. Looks like Cameron is giving their teammate a bit of a tow. It's going to be a 129.112, and Lenny is going to set a 130 flat. It's not going to be enough to challenge the top drivers, but it is still going to be enough in the case of Cameron to partition the two Williams, and it's going to seal them in P3 on the grid for the race. But there we go. I believe we are looking at race order, ladies and gentlemen. We are looking at the grid order for the race that is about to take place. We have, say, Amir in first place, 128.8, brilliant time, and followed by Williams. Cass doing a very good showing, a very good form with a P2. Cameron with a P3. Rin with a P4 in the Williams. Again, showing that they do have very strong one-lap pace. But beyond that, we say we have Frederick in P5, and we will have the statistics back up on screen in a second. So there we are. So Jasper, in fact, taking a surprise P5 in the Red Bull with a 129.193. Frederick with a 129.2. Joshua in the AlphaTauri following closely behind. So mostly at the top, almost as expected, is the F1 grid. But we have seen a little bit of shake-ups, as I say. We have seen a fair few shake-ups in terms of the grid here. Fortunately, I cannot navigate to show you all the entire grid, but say a couple of F2 drivers have mingled in with the front of the pack with the F1 cohort, which may certainly play a little bit of havoc when it comes to race time. Of course, the F1 guys will be in the mindset of wanting to catch up and wanting to overtake the F2 guys in the middle. Wanting to overtake the F2 guys that is in the middle of them and the rest of the F1 pack. But here we go. We are just prepping over for the race here. I'm going to take a quick second, and while we get a formation lap up and going, we'll be with you shortly. Okay, and we are back. Just checking now that everything is good to go. Say some complaints of blocking from the F2 League on fast laps, but of course that will be resolved by the stewards when the time comes. And just checking in with some of the other runners currently, making sure that everything is shipshape and that we can get this session underway. Looks to all be okay. Of course, keep in mind that stewards will step in if needed to adjudicate things like while may not things like qualifying, but would definitely be adjudicating the race. So standings may in some cases be provisional. But with that all being said, let us finally get our formation lap underway and let's have a good race at Paul Ricard. Fortunately, with some technical issues, looks to be transpiring. We're just going to quickly check and see what's going on there. We'll be right back with you shortly. Okay, so I have just got word that the lobby is currently bugged, so we are just looking to resolve it currently. We have got a bugged lobby, it seems like, owing to some players not being able to connect, some people's getting connections being forcibly closed. We're just looking into getting that remedied as we speak. Apologies for the minor hiccups. Okay, so a few drivers not being able to connect. Looks like the issue is a little bit more widespread than we first projected. We are in the process currently of either finding a new host or restarting the lobby with the intent to retain a grid position. There we are, and we just got word that the grid will be recreated by one of the other admins in charge of the league. Okay, so looks like that we do have a working lobby now. However, it is debatable as to whether that lobby will be retained or we are going to be migrating to a new one so that everyone can join. Okay, yep, so just got word, and we are rejoining now. That a new lobby is being created. We are just in the process of migrating to that now. Will be, hopefully shouldn't be more than just a second. Okay, so just to give everyone an update, I know that you cannot see it currently, but we have got a lobby reformed. We are just now in the process of setting the grid order to be consistent with quali, as well as making sure that everyone's in the same teams and all of the settings are consistent. So the lobby is just being finalized as we speak, and we shouldn't be more than a few minutes before we head back in for some racing. Okay, so just to display, give you a bit of an idea of what is going on, we are just waiting for last couple of drivers to connect. So reportedly, a couple of drivers are having issues with their Steam. So that is the reason why we are experiencing some delays. But otherwise, it has been confirmed that everyone will be starting on the same compound that they qualified on. They'll be starting on an identical compound. And that the grid order is set, and we are just waiting for everyone to join in. If people do not join in within the next few minutes, they will be, in essence, discounted from the race order. And then the race will continue as planned. And to answer a question that I saw, if you did not set a lap, then you can go on softs. Just final checks. Yep, so last couple, few more drivers hopping in now. Should not be long. Okay, and we are officially readying up, folks. Apologies for the wait, apologies for the relative downtime, but we are now all set, all ready to go. Driving can finally get underway. We have all our drivers in, the grid order is set, and everyone has resolved their issues with their quali tire compounds. So here we are heading into the race now as we speak. But anyone in the chat, so first off, thank you for sticking around. So we had a couple of hiccups, but we are back in the running with things. Two, who do you predict? Anyone in chat, I'd love to hear your predictions for who you believe is going to win the race for the F1 League, who you predict to win the race for the F2 League, your projections for the constructors. I would love to hear all your thoughts in the chat. It'd be great to hear some of the opinions going around. But here we go. We are heading into the race. Everyone is in the process of loading their setup, getting themselves ready, and we are about to head on track in just a few seconds. Yeah, everyone is getting reminded to load in all of their setups. Owen's going to take the win for F2. Thing for us. My voice is already shot, I'm afraid. Otherwise, I would have loved to. Surprise Abashi win. Who knows? Anything can happen. Anything can happen. Here we go. Last few seconds, and then we will be set up and ready. I am personally, I'm hoping for a good performance from the Williams team. So of course they have a proven entity who joined their paddock for this race in the form of Cass, as well as Rin showing extremely good pace and only struggling with their consistency. I do hope that they can finally pull something together. I really do hope that they can pull this together. Haas going to make some moves. I do have confidence in Haas as well. It has to be said. Okay, having a quick look and say the Haas team, Kent, Kent and Scotty, two very strong drivers in their league. I do have confidence that they will do well. Right, here we go. We are finally ready. Our formation lap is now underway. Let us get all set up. But here we go. I am hoping that, say now, Rin has now joined, thankfully. But I am very hopeful that, especially Rin, can start to pull something together out of this race and can really score some. They have a very good opportunity to score some big points for Williams here. They have a high pace, they have a proven entity in the form of Cass, although they said that they are joined, but however they are ghosting, it seems. Not sure what is going on there with their car. As you can see, in terms of tyre strategy, of course everyone respecting the agreement to run on their medium or soft, depending on what they qualified on. Everyone was instructed to run the same tires as they used in quali, and of course that's going to create a variation in strategies. Just looking at the tire data, still the majority of drivers used their softs for their qualifying lap. However, a few drivers did opt to go for the medium. So for example, Lenny, our current F1 a second place F1 driver for the driver's title, trying to essentially deny Amir's title bid, but they're running on the mediums, and say the medium strategy on this track could prove very powerful if played correctly, not to mention in conjunction with events like safety cars, and it really is a game of chance. A lot of it is down to chance, and playing your cards right is one of the most exciting parts of F1. So here we go as we roll in to the grid boxes. Of course, as the strategy readouts could potentially see a two-stopper. Depending on safety car, I do potentially see twos or even three stoppers to really sort of maximize pace and claim free pit stops. But we are all getting ready now, heading in to the grid boxes. It will be very satisfying to see, I will say, when the next game, when F1 22 brings in manual grid box formations. There we go. Rin behaving very strangely there, but it's we've got 5 lights, and it's away we go. It's a very good start for Caster, getting a very good launch compared to Emir there, getting a very good charge. Looks like McLaren's having a little bit of a tussle. Alfa Romeo's it's going to be side by side between Cass and Emir going into the first corner. Cass is going to set their dominance here. Emir really holding it in. Gonna have to go on the outside. Already it's a sector 1 issue. It looks like Nikolaites has had an incident. Nikolaites has, in fact, either spun off or been spun off. Cass has cemented the position in P1, as they've done very well in that first sector to fend off Emir, force them to retreat. Of course, we have got a couple laps until the DRS kicks in, and that is prime opportunity for drivers like Rin to come in and also secure P2, taking valuable space away from the Mercedes. But that fight is not done yet. Emir's going to have the inside, a little bit of a bump from the tires, a little bit of contacts there, and Emir is going to push ahead along with their teammates swiftly in tow. It's a big battle up at the front between the Williams and the Mercedes, the junior and the sister team. But the McLaren of Cameron is going to come sweeping in and take 4th place. A very good move coming into the start of Sector 3. It is a very good move, and they're already challenging the Mercedes. Not quite going to get the move done, and that's going to give it an opportunity for Rin to push the inside, reclaim 4th position potentially, but Cameron is going to stick it out, really hold the inside line coming up to pit entry, but it's not going to be enough. Rin is going to secure their position on track. Jumping back to a little bit further back in the order, we can see from behind a real bunching up. Lenny is trying to get past, but struggling at the moment. Cassing a current fastest lap, looking a bit down at the F2 League here, you can see big sort of sweeping moves as they dashing left to right in the circuit, trying to defend position. Looks like the Alfa Romeo and the Red Bull came together. The Red Bull is going to be dipping back, ghosting through other cars. Not sure what's going on with their driver there, potentially gone out. But looking back at some of the F2 drivers, you can see the 2 Alfa Romeos, Owen and Jarrell, are keeping it very tight with each other currently. The compound difference means Jarrell might want to get past. They might want to let those team orders take effect and let the teammate go by in this instant. They do have compound advantage, and they will want to make use of that. This isn't a battle of pride, this is a battle of points. And you can see there, so you get a little bit of a peek up the inside. It's not quite going to happen. Potentially might want to coordinate with their teammate a little bit there. But looking up to the front of the grid, Cass doing very well so far to hold front position, but Emir is going to be coming up for a little bit of a charge. Looking behind, even with competing with Dirty Air, Emir is going to be right on the tail of that Williams. Is not going to be giving an inch to Cass over here. Of course, long time rivals in the F1 League. Both very fast drivers, both neither giving each other an inch, and Emir is really trying to push those margins, taking a little bit of a nose in, but not quite going to get the move done. Really sticking it behind the rear of that Williams. That was very wide there from Joshua. Just looking back, it's a very wide run. But here we go, taking a look at Emir. Is going to be a drag race between them and the Williams. They're going to get a good run. DRS is now enabled, so the strategic elements are going to start to come into play. Cass is in a heated battle right now, so they've dropped behind both the Mercedes. Frederick and Emir are both charging ahead. Cass is going to have no choice but to take a wild line and potentially get the retake shortly after. Might be trying to get the DRS, and as we see the detection point being activated, that DRS is going to come into full swing. As you can see them flying by Frederick and sweeping into 2nd place there. It's a good move, a very strategic move, and one well executed by the Williams. It's looking very strong so far for the Williams suit. Checking in on Rin now, who's tucked in behind Cameron, is going to potentially be making a move. Looks like they are closing the gap ever so slightly with every passing moment in this race. And one will definitely be to watch is up the front here. But taking a look, though, Scotty is going to be trying to make a move on Virus here for the current F2 lead. So unfortunately does not make the move, has no choice but to dip back behind the AlphaTauri there, and doesn't look like they're getting the best runs through the corners, but by no means is this fight over. So taking a look, the Haas drivers having very strong performances up until this point. Looking at the standings, you can see a teammate Kent is backing up the rear on the defense from the two Alfa Romeos. To say DRS is in full effect, the train is up, it's going to take a little bit of a peek on the inside and then sweep it back round to lock in the move going into turn one. That was a very smooth attack and a well executed overtake, very nicely done. But of course Rin getting a penalty owing to track limits. Of course that will be reviewed if deemed necessary, but Scotty is now going to have to defend. We're not sure what has happened. What's happened to Owen? Owen looks like they had a bit of a spin out because they are now all the way down in 16th place. They have lost a chunk of time, a massive chunk of time to the rest of the field. And that is time that they're going to have to get back. But there we go. Virus is going to get the DRS, the retake now on Scotty. Of course, they did get a very nice overtake going into turn one, but Scotty means they are not going to have the DRS in their favor, and the DRS train quickly ate them back up because now they are back in 11th place behind not only Virus but their teammate Ken and Jorel also. Previously the Alfa Romeos were doing very well, but we just had that incident from Owen. Cass also getting a time penalty for, say, track limits by the looks of things. They're pushing it a little bit hard. Of course, that is not going to play well with their final result, especially competing for a top point position like this one. So popping on with Frederick here, right on the tail of that Williams, and they are definitely going to be pushing. DRS is now open. We're going to see a DRS overtake, I believe. Cass can do very little to defend that. They essentially have to just stand idly by and let the Mercedes through, praying that they can get the retake and stay within the contention of the Silver Arrows here. Whoa, bit of a bug there, a little bit of a hiccup. Not sure what happened there, I'm afraid. But we are back in it now. A little bit of a game freeze. But as we were saying, so the DRS train is going to be in effect, Mike, considering that Frederick is also going to be getting the DRS from their teammate. We see it activating now. That big DRS train is kicking in. Cameron is going to get overspeed against Rin here. It's going to go for a retake on the position. So amid all of that, Rin managed to get 4th place on Cameron and is now going to be having that position retaken by the McLaren here. Lenny is doing very well also, it has to be said. They are also doing extremely well to hold the pace so far, coming up from 9th and really trying to make the most of those medium compounds that they qualified on. We need to see if we can reset the timesheets potentially from that bug out there. As we go, looking at Jorel, we can see that whole pack at the front of the field of the F2 League here, squabbling and fighting between themselves. As so-called Kent's doing very well thus far, holding the lead for their respective league. Virus just behind, and say Jorel. What is Jorel doing? I am not sure what just happened to Jorel there. Very strange behavior. Has to be said, but as say they served an immediate positional penalty, going all the way down to 14th. Really? Oh, say there we go. Then just words they have disconnected from the session. Okay, hopping it back to the race now. You can see a nice aerial shot here of the racing that's taking place. Jasper is apparently back in the session now. Whether they'll be able to rejoin is anyone's guess, but they are just tucking in. Coop is tucking in behind Alessio, taking a very wide line, overextending the track a little bit, coming through into the DRS straight. So not looking like the best position to be in right now. Lenny, though, having a bit of a look. Unfortunately, my timesheet is bugging out here. The splits are completely broken, so we are going to hide those for now and hope that they are remedied. They are remedied. So say, having a quick look, say penalties. A lot of penalties dotted around the board thus far, particularly ones pertaining to track limits. And of course, these are going to be adding on to their finishing time. So drivers not only will have to account for their overall position, but they'll also have to try and make as much of a gap to the competition as they can, or they will forfeit that position that they would otherwise have. Here we go, praying that we get a fixed screen. Yes, we do. The intervals are coming back in now. Apologies for that minor hiccup, that minor bug there. We are trying to make the best of an otherwise inconsistent game. There we go. Looks like a very good run for the two Haas drivers right now. Say Scotty is currently in 10th place and is looking to chase down the AlphaTauri and their teammate who's currently leading the F2 sector. But Alessio, our driver's champion, is chasing down behind. They are not giving that Haas an inch here, so they're going to be looking to push forward. The Haas are taking a very wide line. So again, maybe a bit of a track over extension, in my opinion. Of course, we'll have to see if they get another time penalty for track limits to that effect. But you can see that gap between Kent and Byrus is closing. So being the lead of a DRS train like that means that the gap is going to close. Lenny, though, doing extremely well. A big fight mid-pack here. Lenny getting past Joshua in the AlphaTauri, and really a big mid-pack squabble. So Cass and Rin bunching up together behind Cameron. It is very tightly packed at the front of the grid, but you can see a clear segmentation between the F1 grid, the F2 grid, and then anyone who's been involved in an incident. But Joshua is going to opt to go in the pits, which I think is quite a curious choice. It's 6 laps in on the softs, so maybe potentially quite high wear, but we're seeing quite a few drivers heading now into the pits and into the swaps for, interestingly, a hard tyre. So we're seeing a lot of swaps either to the medium or even the hard tyre in Cameron's case. Potentially a alternate strategy that they are trying to play out, but that does not discount the safety car. A lot of drivers hitting in. Having a look at Rin now, of course, doing very well in the Williams, holding 3rd and 4th place against the two Mercedes. Thus far holding a very strong performance. That DRS train really kicking in there. But it looks like there's going to be a yellow flag in Sector 1. Not sure what's happened. Looks like there's a bit of an issue with Owen. They have gone off track briefly, so there's a brief flag wave. Sector 3 also looks like it's having a little bit of issues. Jasper is out of the race. Looks like Jasper is completely out of the race altogether. So Amir is 2 seconds ahead, meaning they are out of DRS contention. So it is not looking good so far for anyone looking to challenge that driver's title. So they're having such a gap away from the rest of the field, it is bound to play havoc with any sort of title drives. But there we go. Jasper is out of the race, unfortunately. Not sure why that could be. We can see a lot of drivers. It looks to be a very high wear compound. Say the soft looks to be very high wear, at least in this race. Amir is going to be opting to stay on with the soft compounds for at least one more lap. Kent is going to get a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And Amir is going to, looks like they're going to be trying to extend, they're going to be extending their lead on the soft compound really as much as possible, try and go for a bit of an overcut. But you can see the grip is starting to wane on those softs. You've got the red warning, and they are definitely struggling by this point. Let's see, we are, say, looking now at sort of drivers like Callum, of course, in the F2 League. With a lot of the drivers in the F1 League now pitting in, we're going to see a lot of intermingling between the F1 and the F2 Leagues for track position, and that is going to be a concern for the F1 drivers, because the F1 drivers will obviously want to get past and get back to their own league of racing. So they may have to deal with some on-track traffic. Say Callum even doing a very good job by the looks of things in that Aston Martin of leading this segment of the race. Callum has always been one, by the looks of it, for running along the tyre strategy, doing well on tyre conservation. So they are definitely one to watch in terms of overall performance. We see a bit of a pass between Virus and Ken here. Ken, say, dropping back behind the other two cars. Scotty doing very well to get away. and really start to build up a bit of a gap between themselves and the AlphaTauri. It's looking very good for them here. The exhaust Cass has come out on fresh hard tyres. A lot of drivers are opting to take the hard tyres as opposed to the mediums, potentially looking to get a one-stop strategy. So they really are going to have to maximize the pace as much as they can. And it's a good move from Cass there. It's a good move, tucking in behind Cameron, really taking advantage of the DRS train and looking to make full use of the slipstream also to get the pass done in the same way the McLaren did. But having a brief look at the standings, as we have a brief yellow flag wave for Sector 2. Looks like it's going to be Coop, who is struggling there. Yeah, looks like Coop was having a little bit of a struggle to control their car there. They are in a different race to the rest of the field, it has to be said. Emir, though, Insanity, has managed to get a really good amount of life out of those soft tyres, where a lot of drivers pit on laps 7 and 8. Emir has managed to lap them all the way to 9. But of course now they are on the disadvantage because they are going to have to be fighting back up, potentially have lost some time with overextending the soft compound, but going to be very quick. So yeah, it's a very quick pit stop there. Going to be very quick to try and gain as much of that position and recoup some of that advantage. There you go. Looking at our race leader, however, there's a Lenny doing very well. Of course, they have not yet taken a pit stop, but they are still doing very well regardless, as they're using the strengths of the medium tyre, so they're going to be pushing as much as they can out of those yellow walls. So it is looking so far like a very strong performance from the McLarens, and certainly is going to do well in their constructors bid, because Emir and Frederick have overall a lower position as a team compared to the two McLarens right now. So we are taking a look around the grid here. We can see, so in first place for the F1 we have Lenny, second place we have Emir, third is Cass, fourth Cameron, fifth is Joshua, sixth is Frederick, and seventh is Coop. Eighth place we have Rin, so they dipped a little bit behind, lost a little bit of their advantage, but of course they can fight to get that back up. In fact, it looks like they're doing so. They're about to pass Coop. We're going to quickly tune in on that now. You can see a bit of a peak there, but not going to make the move work, unfortunately. And in fact, that is primarily it for F1 League. So in ninth place is Jasper, but they unfortunately did not finish the race distance. And then looking to our F2 League, we have Callum in first currently, Scotty in his second, Kent in third, Virus fourth, Alessio, our driver's champion, in fifth place, Sam in sixth, Nicolaites in seventh, and then the two Alfa Romeos of Owen and Jor-El in eighth and ninth place respectively. Cass is going to set a fastest lap on the hard tyre, which is very impressive from the stand-in Williams driver. It's a very impressive performance. Really shows how they are managing to extract so much performance out of that much harder compound. Here we are as we see Callum, the F2 race leader, finally going in for pits after eking out a lot of distance on their current tyre. The only drivers that we have left to take a pit stop is Lenny, Coop, and potentially, depending on their race strategy, Jor-El. They might see them going in for yet another stop, as they have opted to go onto the soft compound. So whether they're going to be running a soft medium for the rest of this race, we do not know. But they're already 4 laps in on the soft wall tyre, and there's certainly going to have to be some experimentation in order to make this work. Having a look at Lenny here, so it looks like they are going to be running as much distance as they can out of those mediums, but the problem is with those mediums, being that they start to get on, is at what point do you make the call? At what point do you make the call is my question, to go in and pit, maybe lose that track position. However, the trade-off of that is that if you continue to stay out and eke out more laps out of aging tires, you're ultimately going to be losing more pace than if you were to go in earlier. So making that judgment call, and as we see there, Amir has just set another fastest lap, a 131.697. Brilliantly done from that Mercedes there. But at what point do you make that judgment call to go in for fresh tires compared to trying to eke out an overcut just that little bit more, because you are ultimately losing time? And looking at it, it looks like Lenny is losing about 2 to 3 seconds a lap just from being on those old mediums alone. So at what point is the overcut no longer worth it? Taking a look around the grid here, you can see a little bit of a three-way battle starting to boil over for third place. Cameron and Joshua trying to catch up to Cass as quickly as they can. DRS to the full advantage, but of course Dirty Air to contend with as they head out of the DRS zone and into the third sector. And the grid really has started to fan out at this point. It's been nice that we have not seen any safety car incidents, that we have not seen any potential causes for issue. We have had a few what looked like spin-outs. Unfortunately, we did not catch the majority of them on camera, but it looks like we had a few spin-outs, namely from the F2 League, but it was all handled relatively well and it did not impact the race meaningfully in any way. But you can see there, Lenny is opting to take another lap out of those mediums and has lost about 3 seconds, so they will definitely have to pit next lap or they will be losing all that advantage. Although I say that, it looks like a Sector 3 incident. Kent has completely spun out by the looks of things. They've completely spun out. They've lost all their advantage that they have once gained against all of the other F2 drivers. They are back down at the rear of the grid with drivers like the likes of Nicolite and Owen now, which is definitely unfortunate. Not what you want to be seeing, considering Haas were doing so well up to this point for the F2 League. Luckily, it does not look like the Haas sustained any damage, so they will be able to keep going without a remedial pit stop. Having a look back to the front of the grid now, where lots of the action is, you can see coming through, and just having had the DRS zone, the McLaren of Cameron is still breathing down Cass's neck here. And as we come to the halfway point of the race, it still does look like, at least the lower podium spots, they are definitely up in the air. So just having a bit of a little bit of a reflection, because this has been a very intense season. As of course, while I haven't had the opportunity to check in with the F2 League, certainly the F1 League has been an insane season thus far. It has been full of excitement, full of craziness, a little bit of drama here and there to spice things up, and it has been an absolute pleasure. So we are coming into the last few rounds. I am very hopeful for season 15. I'm very hopeful that I am retained for season 15, because it has been an absolute pleasure casting up until this point, and that hopefully production values can only be pushed higher and higher, and hopefully we can only go up from here in terms of production, in terms of improving the quality of the racing, the casting. It's all to go up from here. So here we go, taking a look here. So it looks like Cameron is going to finally go for the move. They got a significant overspeed on Cass here. They're going to seal the move coming out of the DRS zone. They're going to tuck in ahead. They on a lap older hards. It's looking strong. So Frederick and Rin also tussling for position here. I'm going to quickly check in on them as they look to be having a pretty big drag race. Frederick is on a tyre disadvantage, but is still definitely holding their own against that Williams. So trying to poke their nose in, take an inside line. They were a little bit alongside, but it's not going to be enough to viably have the position. It's going to be a little bit of contact there. Still going to be side by side. Rin is going to have the inside line going into the next corner. Is going to try and seal that move off. Of course, they have the DRS to contend with on the start-finish straight, so Rin has to play this extremely strategically if they want to get this right. That is the DRS detection line. Now they're going to have to be on the defense. It's not going to be enough of a gap to compensate. And you can see there, as Frederick opens the DRS, Rin is going to try and go defensive, sticking to the outside, and try and get in the way of potentially an outside sweep. Not going to have the overspeed though. Frederick is going to struggle for the overspeed. Emir is going to get a track limit warning, interestingly. Lenny is continuing to eke out those medium tyres. Are they potentially going for a medium soft strategy? Because that is going to be extremely risky. That's an extremely risky strategy. There you go. Both drivers getting it very sideways now. Rin and Frederick. Very sideways action there. But DRS is open for the Silver Arrows. Are they going to have the overspeed that they need in order to take the position back? It looks like it's going to be it. It's going to have a big dive down the inside. They're going to be alongside going in. There's going to be a spin. There's going to be contact, and it's going to be a spin from the second Mercedes. That is the last thing that you want in a battle like that. I am sure Frederick is not going to be happy along the lines of that one. I say they were significantly on alongside, but whether that is judged as a racing incident or is penalised has yet to be seen. Of course, stewards will be reviewing that incident as to whether any infractions were caused. I'm sure that one thing is for sure is that Frederick is not going to be happy. Rin may be believed, but that does not mean they're out of the woods yet from both a driver's and a steward's point of view. But as they come through, say they are at least safe from the oncoming threat for now. Hopping in though with the front of the grid, to say we have the familiar sight of Emir, Cameron, Cass and Joshua. Say a three-way battle for the podium continues to rage on and has been raging on for several laps by this point. Of course, Cass doing extremely well along with Cameron in managing the tyre disadvantage compared to Joshua. Joshua has the softer compound, but we are starting to see that they're on the point where the mediums will fall away. We saw a lot of drivers swapping out the mediums around the 10 or 11 lap mark, so it looks like that is where the grip point starts to diminish. So how Joshua will manage that, being on those mediums, where Cass and Cameron are on the hards, is yet to be seen. With that being said, Lenny has really extended those mediums. They have to go to the pits now. Surely they have to go into the pits, because they have lost almost all of their tyre advantage from pushing so far. And there we go. They are finally, after 16 long, hard laps, they have fully pushed out the performance of their tyres there and really got absolute maximum life. The question is that going to be worth it? That massive overcut. You can see that they're going for these soft tyres. A medium soft strategy. I will be amazed if Lenny gets to make this work. It's a very risky strategy, but this could potentially be big if they can pull this off. There we go. That is the McLaren back on track, and he's back in it. There we go, heading up to the front of the grid now as they mostly calm down around the rest of the field. So we have a little bit of a battle going on in the F2 division between Sam and Byrus. What has happened to Coop though? Coop has gone into the pits, as also eking out the medium compound, and is opting to go for the same strategy here as Lenny. Of course, they are further back in the grid, so they cannot guarantee the same success, but I will certainly, for one, will be interested to see how this unique strategy plays out. But here we go, so Byrus and Sam having a bit of a tussle here, coming through the first sector. Byrus will have DRS to play with once we come to the straight, so they are significantly behind. And there we go, that is the detection line. Are we going to see a move being made? DRS is open. Looks like you're going to get a good amount of overspeed. Sam is going to try and go defensive, say a little bit of a move, but it's not going to be quite there. Looks like a little bit of network instability, but Byrus is going to push forward with it anyway. That is going to be a move signed, sealed, and delivered by the AlphaTauri. Very good move there from the driver. But here we go. Having a look at the rest of the field here, especially towards the front, Emir has currently got a 12-second advantage to the next driver, which, of course, as they needs to account for the fact that Cameron and Cass are on the harder compound and will be looking to run those compounds to the end of the race. But Emir still is around 12 seconds ahead, and it looks like that gap is not diminishing, even though they have... Although what has happened, it looks like Emir's made a mistake. Emir looks like they had a massive spin out there. That is a very costly mistake. Look at that time, absolutely diminished there. absolutely falling away. That massive 7 seconds lost just from a simple spin alone. We prophesized the improbable. We were saying previously, just before the race start, that unless Emir makes a mistake, things look sealed. And lo and behold, Emir has made a mistake on track. Looks like a Sector 1 yellow flag. Not sure what that is going to be about, but that is going to be... looks like Nikolai's there had a little bit of an issue going through the first sector. But there we go. Emir is certainly going to be panicked. Their mental state is probably going to be a little bit shaken after this. So when you get into the psychology of a driver, you do get very shaken up by little mistakes that happen on track, especially spin out, because you panic to try and get into that rhythm again. And when you can't do that, you can't panic. You don't have a choice. You need to keep a level head. And if they can keep that panic under control and quickly re-establish balance, then they will be fine. But while it looks like they've done so, they will still be mentally shaken, and that could potentially be the door that lets more mistakes creep in. But there we go. Lenny is stealing a point there from fastest lap. Was a very good time, really making use of that soft compound. But of course, one has to be careful, because even with the fastest lap, if Emir comes first, they will still have the championship. They will still have the championship, because all they need is 2 points advantage. So even with the fastest lap and Lenny on 13, Emir will still have 15, and that will be the championship decider. So Emir has absolutely everything to lose here, but also everything to gain. And here we are, hopping on with the cohort behind them, fighting for now second place. It is going to be, say, Joshua, Cameron, and Cass, a familiar trio. A very familiar trio that has been battling for the majority, if not all, of this race so far. Cass, again, doing extremely well to hold those hard tyres, along with Cameron. Has managed to make it past Cameron amidst all of the chaos. Although looking back further behind, looks like it's going to be a bit of a tussle between Sam and Byrus once again, where Sam may have made it past. Byrus has now gone for the retake, and Sam's going to go for the retake. It's going to be a big drag race heading into the third sector. Byrus is going to have the inside line. Sam is going to have to yield, but is really keeping it pinned, trying to get the overspeed on the outside. Looks like there's going to be a little bit of contact between the two, and it still remains a drag race heading through the third sector. Sam is going to give it their absolute all. Is going to try and get on the inside of corners. Is going to try and squeeze out that AlphaTauri, but it doesn't look like it's happening. It doesn't look like it's working, because Byrus got a significant overspeed, has planted their car perfectly heading into the final corner. And whoa, okay, big issues happening there. Really not sure what's happening with the connections of these drivers. Doesn't look like any damage sustained, but definitely is going to be a big shakeup. It's really going to bring those drivers out of the rhythm. Yeah, looking like there's no damage sustained, which is lucky for them. Just a desync issue. Lenny, I agree. Lenny is going to be very fast now. He's going to make full advantage of those softs. But of course, he is out of the DRS train. He is out of the DRS train of the battles up ahead of him. So he's fighting an uphill battle. Even with compound advantage, it's not going to be enough unless Lenny puts in the drive of their life right now. There we go, hopping on with Emir. So of course, doing well to recover their pace. And it's really, I think we're going to see Emir trying to eke out those mediums to the end of the race here. I think we will see them try to eke it out, because they have no reason, especially with only 5 laps to go, and the fact that other drivers could squeeze realistically 16 laps out of those mediums. He has no reason to pit. So it's all about, at this point, tyre management and trying to manage the pace where other drivers have gone onto the hards. Are they going to be able to manage that pace, to manage that grip deficit, where the hard tyre is going to start to come into its own? Else, as the mediums will fall away. As here we go. Majority of the grid has gone for a hard tyre, so a much higher wear track, and by extension, a lot of variations in strategy. We're seeing soft drivers, we're seeing medium drivers, we're seeing hard drivers, all big variations in strategy here on track. I'd say one standout so far is the Williams. As I say, they are doing very well, 2nd and 6th. and the McLarens also 3rd and 5th. Both of those teams doing extremely well in terms of positioning. So you've got Joshua flying the flag for the F1 League solo for his AlphaTauri unit. Looks to be a yellow flag in Sector 1. Not sure what's happening there. Let's quickly check in and see what's going on there. Not that car. Looks like Coop had a bit of an issue. Yeah, as they really extending the track. Potentially got wing damage. Doesn't look like it, but they're still having major issues with controlling their car. That's going to be another spin. That's going to be another spin for the Alpine. What is going on with that car? Very unsafe entry back onto the track, really cutting right in the way of Nikolaites there. Very unsafe track re-entry. And really, Coop is just not having a good time when it comes to the races here. Certainly struggling to keep a handle of that Alpine, which we hoped would be something that they would sort of start to get to grips with as time has gone on. Here we go, looking at Lenny now. Lenny has done exceptionally well. They've managed to catch up to the fight. So really making full use of those softs. DRS is open. Are they going to be making a pass on Joshua here? Looks like they are. They got the overspeed. They've got the big send going into the corner. DRS really coming into its own there. And of course now they are behind their teammate. So very alternating strategies. I really think this goes to show, in the case of the McLarens, how very alternate, how very different strategies can sometimes yield similar results. It's all about how you play it and work around each other as team members. So there we go. It's looking like a very good performance from Lenny so far. Is it going to be enough? We don't quite know yet, but it is definitely a stellar performance for that McLaren driver. So looking up fastest laps, as although it's very, very close, Amir is just around 50 milliseconds in terms of fastest lap behind, on a harder compound no less. But so far, Lenny is holding a fastest lap with a 131.644. Those are valuable points. Those are extremely valuable points in the context of this race and this championship that they need to hang on to at all costs. So Frederick and Rin are finally coming back to blows now. Frederick has managed to catch up, doing exceptionally good work to catch up to Rin, making it past them. I think this is where we're seeing the medium compounds start to really fall away, and probably a bit of a misgamble from Rin and Joshua, because now, unless they swap tires and lose a significant amount of time, they are going to be running the mediums for 18, 19 laps, which they really cannot afford to do. So Rin getting a big amount of overspeed and locking in a move coming through the DRS straight. Very daring move. Of course, they're going to have to be on the defensive now for the retake. So we are heading through the grid. So Cameron is still on the tail of Cash, who has done very well. So despite the pace deficit, of course, they are losing time from defending, which Amir is taking full advantage of. But Cass has still done extremely well to defend from the McLarens there. Here we go. As we come to the last few laps here, I'm getting tense. I'm getting very tense here, because this is, of course, like the potential Drivers' Championship decider. What has happened over at the back of the field? So it looks like Callum had a bit of an off, because they've dropped in pace significantly. It looks like also an incident over at Sector 3. Byrus had a big off, potentially spinning it, but surprisingly, 0 drivers have sustained damage. Up until this point, no drivers have actually sustained damage and had to take a remedial pit stop, which is certainly one of the biggest advantages of Paul Ricard. So you may make mistakes, but the track is extremely forgiving. Cameron making a move on the Williams. You can see just ahead, a move is being made. And oh my god, what has happened to Cass there? What has happened to Cass? They've managed to keep their car. They've managed to keep their car on track. So it looks like they're retired in a heat of rage there, because they completely lost control of their car. That was a very dramatic end to that battle, let me tell you. So what was such a strong defense has fallen, was snapped in the split second. Really unfortunate, as they were doing so well up to that point. Hopefully now all we can pray for is that Rin makes it home with some points for Williams, because they have still done very well, but they are, of course, are on the uphill battle for tyre conservation and tyre management. So we go. Coop is actually going to be the one to set the fastest lap now. They have stolen the fastest lap from Lenny just by under a tenth here, with 1:31.550. In very good pace there from that Alpine, to say a flash of brilliance from the back of the grid. So, of course, I do want to check on drivers like Joshua, however, because, say, 18 laps on mediums, you can really see where they're having to be a lot more conservative with their inputs and their lines, because they just cannot push in any meaningful way. They're really struggling to make a push in those really overworn medium tires. I do worry about Joshua's potential to make it to the end of the race, as which we can't really see the tire wears, but they are spending absolutely every resource they have at their disposal. Say energy recovery, their tires, they are pushing to the absolute limit here to try and secure as good of a position as they can. It really is commendable, but it is definitely a struggle, a difficult battle to be had. So there we go. Say Cass and Jasper both fully out of the race now. Unfortunate to see. So it looks like a sector 3 yellow flag briefly. Nope, looks to be a non-issue, just a brief track slowdown. All looking as we come to the final lap. As much as Lenny has tried to push, and as much as Lenny has really given it their absolute all, as the second place, the softs have fallen away. The softs have not played in their favor today. The grip has fallen away. You can see them falling behind, and in fact they're going to be on the defense from Joshua soon. Their pace has significantly fallen away, and that means, of course, that means, ladies and gentlemen, we have officially, as he comes through the final sector, you are looking at the Invictus Racing League Season 14 PC F1 Drivers Champion, Emir Durakovic, in the Mercedes-Benz. And what a way to take it home. As he comes through the final corner, what a season for Emir. And just like that, the Drivers' Championship is sealed. And what a way to do it for a final mega stint on the mediums. I'm sure he's going to be celebrating with a mega victory, and one of the most important victories of the season. I cannot believe we are seeing such a dominant victory this early, wrapped up in the season. This is with 3 races to go, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a drivers' champion officially crowned. This is insanity, but what a exceptional performance from that Mercedes. And as we see some of the rest of the drivers rolling in, sadly did not manage to get fastest lap to really bring it home and seal the deal in flying fashion. But what a race that has been. What a brilliant performance for all drivers involved, both the F1 and the F2 leagues. And as we see some of the last few drivers bringing it home to the checkered flag. Rin, unfortunately, not doing so hot. But there we are. That is a race complete. And that is your driver's champion crowned for the day. Say Alessio doing very well, scoring driver of the day. And as he comes to the podium, a very familiar sight for the Mercedes driver. It's a familiar sight, it's a welcome sight, and it's going to be his first podium as an Invictus Racing League F1 champion. So reel it in, take it all in, and relish in a well-earned victory. So to the man who got a podium every race bar one up until this point and has sealed the championship with 3 races to go, congratulations on another strong win from that Mercedes driver, Amir. And that is going to be the race. So the race points will be tallied up for the respective leagues. Of course, very well done to Alessio for getting first place for the F2 League, also scoring another win and scoring more points on the board for the Constructors fight and really locking in why they should be the F2 champion. Very nicely done for all drivers involved. I say apparently word is that Cameron got a puncture on the last lap. Really not what you wanted to see, but say a puncture on the last lap. I believe we saw that on the early rounds of the season also. If anyone is in chat correctly, told you to watch Haas P2. Very strong performance there, Scotty. Well done. Excellently done. And say all the drivers really showing their best today. We didn't see really many of any incidents. We only saw one race-ending incident, and even then 0 safety cars. So definitely commendable. Everyone can be proud of the performance that they put on today. And Joshua with the standout podium. So shout out to him as well. There we go. That is going to be race wrapped up. I hope that you enjoyed today's racing. I hope you enjoyed today's racing. It has certainly been exciting. Be sure to join us next week. So just because the Drivers' Championships have wrapped up does not mean the Constructors are by any stretch. So to say, we still have a very heated Constructors battle, both in F1 and F2. So be sure to join us next week. We are heading to the beautiful Shanghai circuit in China. You will not want to miss it as we head through the last couple of rounds of the season. It has always been a pleasure. My name is Sappy. If you have enjoyed it all, you can find me on Twitch as a commentator for other leagues such as Forza. And of course, if you have enjoyed the racing thus far, if you have enjoyed the show, then be sure to like the stream, subscribe if you want to join us for more content heading through to the final rounds of the season, as well as other content for our other leagues. And be sure to stay tuned, hit the bell, and join us next week in China. But for now, we are signing out. Have a very good evening, folks. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you on the 25th of May for the Chinese Grand Prix.